I'm Jody Denberg, and this is KUTX at Home. And today we're going to make ourselves at home with Sylvie Simmons, who has just released her second album, Blue on Blue. But you may also know Sylvie from her music journalism. She's written biographies of Neil Young, Serge Gainsbourg, Leonard Cohen. The Cohen book's been translated into dozens of languages. She co-wrote Debbie Harry's memoirs last year and has written for so many wonderful magazines, Cream to Kerrang to her home mag, Mojo. Sylvie, you're in the Mission District of San Francisco today?
I am, and we have matching wallpaper.
Except it's the real deal.
The real deal.
You moved to the States in the 70s. How long have you lived in the Bay Area?
15 years. This is
Wow.
number 15.
It's a long time. The last time we saw each other, it was October 2012. You were at the Cactus Cafe reading from I'm Your Man with Leonard's biography, with Leonard's whole band in attendance, which was such an amazing night. Was it on that book tour that you started playing music live for audiences?
Absolutely. Leonard Cohen is to blame, though. Not specifically. He did not say, go forth and play my songs. I just thought that when I was doing a book tour, it would be a great idea to take a ukulele along and sing his songs, because I've always been a bit of a kind of inner Leonard Cohen jukebox. I've loved his music, since I was an early teenager. And I thought somehow it would be less nerve-wracking than just reading and talking to strangers, that I could hide behind this little ukulele. And in the end, it got me over the stage fright that had stopped me being a singer-songwriter in the first place.
So before that tour in 2012, had you ever played your music for audiences or musicians, or maybe just your friends?
Mostly friends. I did do one little performance at a kind of off South by Southwest thing, that they had at, I think, Yard Dog. And one of my friends was on stage and asked me if I'd come and sing a song. It was terrifying. So I did do something, and I had been writing songs at that point from about 2007.
For me, because of George Harrison, I was introduced to the joys of ukulele, like some other people were. But the instrument is still pretty foreign to most of us. Why ukulele for you?
In the beginning, it was practical. When I moved out to San Francisco, I wasn't sure if I was going to stay. Certainly didn't think I would stay for 15 years. And so I left all of my stuff in storage in the UK, and that included a piano and a guitar. And I didn't have an instrument, and I bought a banjo at a local pawn shop in the Mission. There are many pawn shops. And I started trying to play things on it, and the neighbors complained. I mean, every single one of them. So this wasn't going to work. And then somebody came into my life who was learning a ukulele and just lent me one initially. And I was like a kid being given their first kitten. I just fell in love with this instrument.
Well, I am so enamored with this new album of yours, Blue on Blue, which is your second. And I want to talk more about it, but I thought, why don't we, for everybody who's watching, perhaps hasn't heard the record, why don't we play a video of one of the songs from the album, give them a taste of it, and then we can talk some more about Blue on Blue. And this is a song called Sweet California. Would you like to set it up in any way?
This was actually one of the last songs that I wrote for the album. Between the time of starting the album and finishing it, I had a pretty dreadful accident and had to learn to try and get my left hand back. Very important to anybody who plays anything like a guitar or a ukulele. Took a lot of time and a lot of surgeries and rehab. And so I was just sitting there at one point and singing this song. And I think it was me singing my hand back home so much as singing me back home, since I was in California when I wrote it.
Riding into the sunset like a cowboy movie hero. Dust in the air shines, gold in the sun. Birds fly, wings stir up the blue. Oh, sweet California, my night bird sang the sweetest song. Don't look back now, only moving on. Oh, sweet California, my heart calls out to you. Wanna feel your warm breath on my skin. Let the ocean wash away my sin. Oh, sweet California, sweet California, I'm coming home to you.
And that was Sweet California, the official music video from Sylvie Simmons' new album, Blue on Blue. And this is KUTX at home. And we are at home with Sylvie Simmons. And you started recording Blue on Blue in 2017 with Howe Gelb of Giant Sand fame, who also worked on your first record, Sylvie. And you alluded before the video to this accident that you had that, shattered your wrist and required surgeries. When you came back to work again on the record, there were some of the songs you'd written that you could no longer play?
Yep, that was the problem. So in the end, I just wrote a few more. Most of them I could do, just about, So that was a good thing. But it was very interesting. Once I had to write these new songs, they just kind of came. It's like they'd been somewhere at the bus station and hadn't bothered to arrive yet. And she needs us now. Let's get there. And so there was another song, Carrie's song, that had just been a little instrumental I'd written some time ago and sent to a guy called Carrie, not a boyfriend, but a slack key guitar player who I thought might be able to do something with it. And it just sat there unused. And, literally the bus came up to the stop and they said, here's the lyrics. And the lyrics came to that song and we recorded it in literally one take in Wavelab Studios in Tucson.
Well, in these days when we're always looking for silver linings amidst bad things happening, that's one silver lining from what I know was a traumatic accident that you would not have to want to go through again, but it did result in some new songs. I would call Howe's production minimalist. I don't know if you're okay with that term or description, but then I hear things like the strings on The Man Who Painted the Sea Blue. If you were reviewing your album, would you call it minimalist?
I think it's a very minimalist version of maximal. It's a strange thing, it's like I think both of us had inner kind of Brian Wilsons and, we were both trying to get this kind of grand sound, but at the same time, Howe is sensible enough to know that you can drown a ukulele very easily. And you can also drown my voice very easily. I mean, both of us are on the small side, let's face it. So it was a case of trying to keep that delicacy there and allow the intimacy of the songs and the words to come through, but also have these kind of grand productions. One of the songs, Creation Day, which I'm quite pleased with myself with that one. So excuse me grinning like a kid. But in the middle, we have an instrumental where we're kind of like doing my inner Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, where we're creating the universe in a small studio. And there's a sound of planets and stars for me. You may not have known that if I hadn't told you, but there's something very dreamy and druggy, but no drugs were involved and probably only dreams were.
You used a word a moment or two ago, intimacy. And there's an intimacy throughout this whole record, and especially on the songs that I am assuming are autobiographical. You don't have to reveal yourself when you're doing your music journalism, but you do sometimes. But you really do reveal who Sylvie Simmons is on these songs. Were you comfortable with that?
Well, actually, they were a lot of the songs that I've written, even on that first album, were so personal that they terrified me. And so I went back and kind of depersonalized in some way a lot of them. It's really interesting. I did an interview years ago with Joni Mitchell, and she was talking about songwriting and actually getting quite prickly, as she can, as we know, about the idea that a song was about one thing. And it was about, maybe one thing might have been the kernel of it, where it started, but it turned into all sorts of other things. So, for example, A Case of You, people say, it's about Leonard Cohen, or they'll say, it's about James Taylor. It could be about both and several other people and just imaginary people. But yeah, there is a lot of intimacy there. A lot of, I think, talking to myself as well. You know, when I say it's about somebody, it's about I'm talking to you in a way. Sometimes I'm talking to me, and sometimes I do need a good talking to.
You know, I like to learn the backgrounds of songs, and I've learned so much from your music writing over the decades about songs, but sometimes I don't want them to be limited. We'll use A Case of You as an example. I don't want to know, because I want it to be bigger and I want to be able to project myself into it and my situation. So yeah, I think it's good to have a little bit of both, the intimacy, but the mystery as well. I read that you view your music and journalism as separate tasks. Can you really separate the two?
Yep. I really, really can. It's such an interesting phenomenon. I could just jump from one to the other, and I don't refer to one thing when I'm doing the other thing that much. I mean, in this interview, because you've spoken to me before as a writer, of course, we're going to speak about things like that. But when I've got my music hat on, I'm in a completely different zone, completely different to my rock writing thing.
So a different zone in your mind in the process of doing it.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's fascinating. I think the first time I heard one of your songs was in a movie. It was Juliet Naked, which, look at our backgrounds, literally. I think you know that Sylvie and I would both enjoy that movie, for us music obsessives. And then I heard there was a documentary film about you on the BBC about 9 years ago, The Rock Chick. I haven't seen that doc. Is it a good snapshot? Do you recommend it?
It's actually not even a visual. It was a radio documentary.
Okay.
Very sweet. I think they literally run out of everybody else in the world to write a documentary about. And so there I was. And so they did something. And it's funny because it was while I was still writing the Leonard Cohen books, so my brain was entirely immersed with Leonard's. That was quite a tome, and it took a lot of writing. And I hadn't kind of made my ukulele public, but there is one thing in there where the guy comes up to my apartment at that time in Noe Street, living above Chuck Prophet and Stephanie Finch. They'd helped me find the apartment. And he saw my ukulele, and he was a ukulele player too. And in fact, I had 2 ukuleles. You never have one if you have a ukulele, as George Harrison said. And so we ended up singing a Beatles song together. It's kind of sweet. It's very strange.
Well, I'm going to seek it out because I'm like you. I'm a music fan. These 2 records that you've made are wonderful. Blue on Blue is the new album from Sylvie Simmons, but there's also Sylvie, and there's a world's worth of writing that Sylvie has done that is so insightful to so many of the musicians that we all treasure and hold dear. So I recommend the writing, the music to everyone. Blue on Blue, look, I can hold it up like we're on TV. It's a peaceful, intimate album of 11 snapshots, and it's just as great as a Sylvie Simmons article or book. Ask our friend Ray Wiley Hubbard. He name-checked Sylvie in his song Chick Singer, Badass Rockin'. And I'm with Ray. And I thought we could leave everyone with one more snapshot. This one is a live performance we have of the final song on the album, 1,000 Years Before I Met You. And on the album, it's actually a duet with Howe Gelb. But this is just your performance of it. Was it different for you? Like, now I have to do both parts?
Well, I had to do both parts when I wrote it, so I was kind of used to it. In fact, I almost resented this voice coming in. Actually, I didn't. I adored it. It was lovely to hear Howe sing it. And I'd written it had the sort of the song in my mind was a sort of a Lee Hazelwood and Nancy Sinatra duet. You know, it had that kind of wry thing where they're kind of being tougher than each other, you know. And I just wrote this thing and I just said, well, you sing it as a duet. And Howe has this way of having one eyebrow lift on its own. I've tried to work out how to do, never could manage it. And he just sang it. And the guys in Tucson studio just nailed it live like they were Nashville cats born and bred.
Well, here's Sylvie's solo performance of the song from Blue on Blue, 1,000 Years Before I Met You. Nice to meet you again in 2D, as you said. And be well, Sylvie. And when things get somewhat back to normal, we hope that we'll see you again in Austin to perform for us, hopefully at the Cactus Cafe.
Oh, I'd love it. Great to see you too, Jody. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
This song is a duet, but as you can see, there's just one of me in lockdown, sheltered in place. On the album, it's Howe Gelb, my producer, Howe from Giant Sand, who sings along, and he's kind of my Lee Hazelwood to my attempt at being Nancy Sinatra. So you're going to have to imagine the second verse is a man singing. We're just trying to out-tough each other, as people do. And this is 1,000 years before I met you. Well, go on, put your clothes on, walk right out the door. Don't want to see you when the sun breaks through the blind. If you're thinking I'll come running, begging you back for more, well, baby, you've been drinking more than I. We can talk all day and talk all night again, but nothing I say could ever make you right again. 'Cause my heart died 1,000 years before I met you, baby. There's nothing here but a long, cold, lonely road, and a hole in my jeans and some busted dreams, and gum on the soles of my shoes. But I'll tell you I love you if you help me say goodbye to these blues. Well, there's 3 more hours till morning, and a bottle on the floor with enough inside to keep us high till dawn. But if you're thinking that I'm a weakening, believing that I'm yours, I'm gonna turn right around and just keep moving on. I can't be what you want and it won't be what you need again. And I can't understand why you want to stand there and bleed again, when my heart died 1,000 years before I met you, baby. There's nothing in here but a long, cold, lonely road, and a hole in my jeans and some busted dreams, and gum on the soles of my shoes. But I'll tell you I love you if you help me say goodbye to these blues. Oh, I will tell you I love you if it helps me